The first I remember is when we lived in Fox, Oklahoma. I was 8 years old when we moved there. And we lived in a farm community. It was just a community, it wasn't a town. It was Fox, Oklahoma. And I had a really good friend that lived across the fence from us. And we played house in their trees, and we just fenced off, and we roped off an area to play. And so I had good memories of Fox, and it was a good place to live. We had a good, wholesome family time where we lived right next to the church. We had a huge garden. I didn't have to do very much of that, but Mother canned every year, and we raised a lot of our food. I had another friend, Ruthie Gaddis, and she lived in one of the oil leases. And her mother, Mrs. Gaddis, taught our sunbeams, and she was a wonderful person and loved us a lot and really wanted us to know about Jesus. And she meant a lot to me. And I believe her older daughter is the one that sewed for me, and I had some really nice clothes. Mother sewed too. Mother made all of our clothes, and even our coats. She would take coats that people would give to us. They gave the preacher a lot of clothes because we had a lot of kids. At that time we just had 4, and I was the baby. But Mother made our coats and made some of our sundresses and our dresses out of feed sacks. But Mother was a very talented seamstress, and she was a good cook. Every Sunday she would fry 2 chickens, kill and fry 2 chickens, and make 2 pies. And on top of all the other things that she did, I often think, how did she do all that? And homemade rolls. Then when I was was older, we moved to Pasadena, and we loved that place too. My folks loved Jesus, and they taught me to love Jesus from early beginning. That was very important, and it was just very natural for us to put Jesus first in our family and in our lives, and taught us to tithe when we were very young. And it was in Pasadena that I became a Christian. My dad was preaching in a revival. Well, I'll back up to say that I had gone forward in church with Dad preaching with one of my friends, and I just didn't really understand what it meant, and I thought I did. I was baptized. But then I got to thinking, especially during revival, Dad was preaching. I went with him to another church, and he taught about hell and what was going to happen when we got to hell. And at night, I couldn't sleep because I thought, my whole family will go to heaven, and I'm going to go to hell. And I couldn't sleep. So I got up out of my bed and went into my folks' room, and I said, I don't think I'm a Christian. Would you tell me again how to be a Christian? And so they did. And we knelt down beside their bed, and that's when Jesus came into my heart. And I knew that it was real and was a forever thing. I never had doubts after that. And that's a wonderful heritage that I have, that my parents were kneeling down on the floor next to their bed with me when I was saved. And then Daddy would say that I wasn't rebaptized. He'd say, then I was baptized. My dad loved us dearly. He loved the church dearly too. And he was a good preacher. And my folks had good friends wherever they pastored.
Any fond memories growing up with your brothers and sisters?
I was the baby, so I was usually tagging along and getting in their way until I was the baby for 8 years, till Randy came. That reminds... I can't tell that. Maybe I can tell it in a way you can share. I can't tell that. We just played a lot outside. Of course, we didn't have TV, and I remember Sylvia listening to the radio a lot on Saturday night, and we would listen to the comic programs, but I remember Sylvia listening to Frank Sinatra every Saturday night. But we just had so much fun just playing outside. I mean, we loved doing that. And Louis would make a mound out of dirt and make roads all around that mound, and he would get like an old skate, and that was his cars, and we liked to play jacks a lot. We liked to play, I did, and just play house. That's what I did. My Aunt Sybil, would send some of her dress clothes to us to play dress up, and I had a lot of fun with that, wearing her high heels and her fancy dresses. Louis was always funny. He kept us laughing a lot. He was just so funny. And then when Randy came along, of course, he was our baby brother, and we all spoiled him. And he would tell something around the table, and then he'd look around the whole table to see if we were all watching him, and we were. And anything he did, we just thought was so cute, mostly. I don't know if anybody has told you that when Randy was little in California, when we lived in the big house, Daddy and I guess some men from the church built a fence. And the first day, Randy learned to climb over the fence. And so then they built, or maybe he learned to open the gate, I can't remember which. And then so they put okay, this is how it is. He learned to open the gate. So they put an extra hard lock on it. So he just climbed over the fence. And he had a place that he went. Our neighbor had boys. So every morning he would get up before breakfast and go over to our neighbor's house, and she would dress him and feed him breakfast, and then he would come home. So Randy had a lot of attention out of our family. We all enjoyed him. I just want to say that the Lord has been generous to me, has been close to me. He's given me more than I could ever comprehend. And through Larry, he's blessed me. And Larry is such a worker for the Lord, and such a selfless servant for God. He truly loves to serve people, and without any recognition or without any without expecting anything in return. And I've been blessed to be a part of that.
Do you have anything you want to say to your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren to come?
To my children and those that come, all my great-grandchildren and grandchildren, I want you to love the Lord. That is so important to me. My children and I went through hard times together, and the Lord is the only one that got us through it. And I want Jesus to be so real to you that no matter what you're going through, that you'll go to Him first, and that you'll draw upon His strength and His comfort and His peace and His guidance and His wisdom. I just want that so much for my family. It is so important to me, and the Lord is so important to me. I'll tell you one couple places where the Lord has been so near to me. The first was when I met Don Sears. Actually, I didn't meet him. I already knew him from Hilton, but we went to LBU together. And we dated from February, and when it came my birthday, which was April the 30th, the Lord impressed upon me that Don was going to ask me to marry him. And we had never talked about marriage, but we enjoyed being with each other, and we were just both feeling like there was a future for us together. And so I told my roommate, I said, I believe Don's going to ask me to marry him tonight. And she said, well, roommate, what are you going to say? And I said, well, I've been praying about it a lot, and unless the Lord tells me differently, I'm going to tell him yes. And so the night before my birthday, I'd get up in the middle of the night. I was at the dorm at LBU, and I'd kneel beside my bed, and I'd say, Lord, other than my salvation, this is the most important decision I'll ever make. And I want it to be the right one. And I feel like you're telling me yes to marry him. But I need for you to tell me without a doubt, so I won't doubt it if I'm hearing you wrong. So we went on our date. He took me out to dinner, gave me a Bible, and I thought, that has the wrong name on it. It had Joanne Hendricks. So we went to Oklahoma City, and he brought me back to the dorm, and it was time to go in. Curfew. And he almost didn't ask me, he said later, but he did ask me to marry him, and I said yes. And that gave me a lot of confidence through the hard times. He was the one that the Lord had picked out for me. And then the second time when God was so near to me was when he died. Because as he was dying, I told the Lord, I believe with all my heart that you can heal him right now, and that he doesn't have to die. And I have faith, without a doubt, that you can do that. But we took him to the hospital, and there he died. But I had that assurance that God could have, and he chose not to. And that's what got me through all the things that were to come. And that day, there were 100 people that came to our house. They were in shock. And some of his students were kind of angry, saying, why would God take somebody that's a good husband and a good dad and such a good person? Why doesn't he take a drunk or somebody? But it was okay, because God had told me that I mean, he didn't tell me verbally, but that was his will. I knew that that was his will. And I didn't want Don to live and have to be in pain and all the things that he was going through. But that day, God was so near to me that I could feel him behind me with his arms around me. I could feel that. And so when times came that were rough, I would just know that God was in control. This was his will. And it was kind of interesting that we, this is kind of a long one. Do you have more time?
Yeah.
You'll have to cut some of it out. When we moved to Altus, it was because of Don's health. He lost his job in Bolivar because he couldn't continue working like that full time. So Don had looked for jobs literally over the world. He had applied to all kinds of universities, to churches. He even contacted the Foreign Mission Board because he said, well, God, you told me to be willing to do anything you wanted me to do. So the only job that opened up in the whole world was Altus, Oklahoma. So we knew that's where God wanted us. And it was a job that didn't have a lot of prestige like we had had before. And it certainly didn't have as much money, but it was where God sent us. And little did I know that that's where I would meet Larry Clemens. And the Lord led us together. And I've had 2 godly, wonderful husbands. I didn't say perfect, but godly husbands that God picked out for me. I truly believe that. And the Lord has really blessed me through both of my husbands.